Now, each week we speak to Leith Van Onselen, co-founder of macrobusiness.com.au. It's where I go for my financial news every day. And the gentlemen that are part of Macro Business just have a common sense take on everything. I love it. And as a result of me reading their stuff and many years ago finding Leith for a chat, we have a chat each weekend and it's terrific. I'm delighted to say that Leith Van Onselen is back this week. Are you well?
I'm good, thanks, Luke, although I think this discussion is going to make people a little bit angry, I think.
Well, we did that last week. And you know what I'll say to you, mate? I'll say this, that of all the commentators I've heard, economists and commentators I've heard, and I remember some time back I referred to our segment as the Treasury of Common Sense, you're best at explaining some of these issues that go unexplained or at least misunderstood by people who don't look at this on a daily basis. And when you hear what's actually going on, dig it a little bit deep and get an understanding of it, you know, you do often end up pretty filthy on things, maybe even filthy at yourself for not understanding. But we get such good feedback on what you say each week. So we thank you for that. And I'm not surprised that if we're going to talk about gas, that we're going to end up pretty angry, because if you fix gas, you go a long way to fixing a whole bunch of things, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. So just a quick recap. I have talked about this before, but there's some new information that's come out. So the federal government made the dire mistake about a decade ago of approving export gas terminals out of Gladstone, Queensland, without any requirement for domestic reservation. So this basically made East Coast Australia the only gas exporting region in the world without a domestic gas reservation mechanism. And a new report from the Institute of Energy Economics and Financial Analysis, which was released, which explained how this fateful decision not to impose domestic reservation has driven up gas prices and harmed Australians. So what the report showed is that while gas production across Australia's east coast has doubled over the past decade, so let me repeat that, we've doubled the amount of gas that we pull out of the ground, the volume going to the domestic market has fallen by 1/4. So we've doubled gas supply, but we've supplying the East Coast domestic gas market by 25% less than we did a decade ago.
Yeah.
And this means that LNG exports out of Gladstone, which primarily go to China, accounted for more than the increase in gas production over the past decade. So we're exporting more than, out of the doubling of gas supply, more than that increase, that doubling is going in exports, and we're actually supplying the domestic market less. And as a result, East Coast gas prices, and we're all seeing it, have tripled since we started exporting LNG, that liquefied natural gas, a decade ago. And look, part of the reason why domestic supply has fallen, or demand, we should say, has fallen by 25%, is because of what economists call demand destruction. So effectively, we've tripled gas prices. And of course, when you triple gas prices, you reduce demand, and you also cause many heavy gas users like manufacturers to shut down. And the report explicitly noted, and I talked about this a few weeks back, that the higher gas prices and higher energy prices generally have caused the closure of major manufacturers in Australia in the past, recent years. So 2 years ago, we lost Incitec Pivot. That was 2022, which was a major fertilisers manufacturer, and obviously we're an agricultural nation, so that's pretty stupid. We lost Qenos, our last plastics manufacturer, last year, so we're going to be relying on importing all our plastics now. We lost our last architectural glass maker earlier this month.
Just glass. On that, that's Oceanic Glass. Just on that, yeah. And it's only because you raised this. I saw yesterday, perhaps the day before, that the housing minister, or former housing minister, anyway, it was Claire O'Neill, went to visit that facility, and she was accompanied by her mates from the left, principally from the union movement, and they were saying, "Oh, how good's this? We've got the minister here to look at the last remaining glass manufacturer, blah, blah, blah." And I'm thinking to myself, hang on a moment. You've directly pursued policies that have increased the price of energy, which this company has claimed has been a big part of the problem. You operate in a state where the state government's got no interest in extracting gas and doing something about it. And you've got the temerity to turn up and refer to yourself on some kind of heroic mission. I found that just so barefaced and appalling that they're using that as a campaign tool where they've reigned over this.
Oh, absolutely. And look, BlueScope Steel's warned that they're going to, shift more of their manufacturing to the US because energy costs are cheaper. Orica the same. So that's explosives used in mining and also fertilizers, which obviously mining's our biggest export and we're obviously agricultural country. So you think we want to make that stuff at home. But no. High energy costs are going to cause shrinkage there. Australia already has the smallest manufacturing share in the advanced world, 5% of our economy. It's the smallest out of all OECD countries. And we're just shrinking it further through high energy costs, which is mostly self-inflicted. And to add further insult to injury, Luke, this report showed that LNG exporters have actually been exporting more gas beyond what they're contracted to support, to export. So what they're doing is instead of supplying the domestic market, they're actually selling it in the spot market, which is like just the short-term market where you don't need contract, you just sell it straight in there to capitalise on the higher prices. So instead of supplying us, again, I'll repeat, we've doubled the amount of gas production in the East Coast in the last decade, but we're actually supplying 25% less to Australians. And and for those who have an environmental bent, the LNG industry accounts for, this is Australia-wide, so East Coast and West Coast. The LNG industry, the export industry, accounts for 80% of total gas use in Australia. And so only 20% of total gas in Australia, East Coast, West Coast, goes to the domestic use. And the LNG plants to freeze the gas to put on a ship to mostly send to China uses more gas than any other domestic user. So we literally use 7% of Australia's gas goes in the process of liquefying it because you got to freeze it to like minus 200 degrees. It uses heaps of energy, so they use gas to do that.
Yeah.
And we actually so the process of freezing the gas to put on a ship to send to China, Japan, etc., who get more of our gas they need than just resell it, uses more gas than we use in electricity generation, manufacturing, residential, mining, etc. So it's just insane. Like this is just an absolute clown show of a policy, and of course this new report, Common Sense, recommends directing some of that export gas in the domestic market to alleviate supply issues, bring down prices, and to save manufacturing, which is obviously what I've been calling for years. And it also warns, and this is the other thing, it also warns that simply expanding supply. So we often hear, we need more supply, we need more supply.
They do say that.
It's not going to make a difference unless it's reserved for domestic use because, as we've just seen, we've doubled gas production on the East Coast in the last decade, but we've actually supplying less to the domestic market because they're just exporting it. So if we're going to expand supply, that's fine, and I'm all for it, but only if it comes with the condition of domestic reservation as well. And, I say it repeatedly, having abundant and affordable gas is vital for the future of Australia's manufacturing. It's also vital because we've decided to shut down all our traditional, electricity generation like coal, etc., and become more reliant on intermittent renewables. Well, if you're going to do that, you need gas as the backup fuel because gas is the best form of peaking. So it means that when the sun's not shining, the wind's not blowing, and you need to generate reliable energy, gas is the best for that because you can turn it on and off very quickly. And it's the best sort of, intermittent backup. And instead what we've done is we've made that the best form of backup through gas incredibly expensive through this idiotic lack of domestic reservation and tripling prices over the last decade. So we've also stuffed the energy transition. If you're a believer that we should get off hydrocarbons and get onto renewables, well, you need gas as the backup, and we've made that incredibly expensive. We've also stuffed the energy transition. So, because if you've got expensive gas, you automatically have expensive electricity, and we've seen that in the last decade where both gas has risen and then electricity has risen in cost.
Yes.
So our overall power bills are going up.
Yes.
And we're the second largest gas producer in the world. Therefore, we should have cheap and abundant supply.
Well, mate,
but instead we don't.
And we don't. I said before, you and I have talked about it before, you go to the Middle East. Frankly, I don't want to live there, but if you did, because the oil's there, you pay 30 cents a litre for your for your petrol. We don't get that here because the oil's there. The gas is here. Do we get the same benefit with our gas here? No, we don't.
Americans do.
Americans do.
The biggest exporter.
So let me ask you about the price differential between what we pay in Australia and let's say what they pay in the US, if you know that.
Yeah. So the US pays about, so domestic users in the US pay about $2.50 US a gigajoule. And sometimes it's even cheaper than that. But when you do the currency conversion, they pay about $4 a gigajoule. At the moment, on a good day, we're paying about 12 Australian. So $4 in the US Australian versus about $12 Australian on the East Coast. And, that on a bad day can go up to 20 because it's not, Albo says he's capped the price at 12. He hasn't really. That's just a target. But it does fluctuate from there, and it hit $20 a month or so ago. So we can pay anywhere between $12 and $20. And let me tell you this, Luke. We're now going to. This is the absurdity of Australia. We're now building LNG import terminals. So one's coming online, scheduled late this year in New South Wales, Port Kembla. Twiggy Forest is opening up LNG import terminals. One planned for Victoria and South Australia. We're soon going to be importing gas into the East Coast, which means that once we do that, to solve the shortage that has been caused through no reservation, and as soon as we do that, our gas price is going to go up even higher because we're going to be paying import parity prices. Right? So we're going to be paying, because you have to pay to then, set up the facilities to degasify it and all that sort of stuff. So we're going to be paying even higher gas prices, which means that we're going to be paying even higher electricity prices. So this is just clown show stuff. I've said it before. Can you imagine living in Kuwait or Saudi Arabia or any of these sort of Middle Eastern oil exporting countries and going up to the Bowser and paying $2 to $2.50 a litre for your petrol, even though you export almost all of it, and then being told, we've got a domestic shortage. And you know what? We're going to actually set up an import terminal to import oil, even though you export, and you're one of the biggest, oil exporters in the world. This makes no sense. This is clown show stuff, and this is Australia.
So before you go, when people ask this question, I'll just do this on behalf of my listeners, that there's a shortage of gas. That's not right. In fact, we're taking out double than what we used to extract a decade ago. Right? So there's no shortage of gas. There's gas everywhere. However, of what we send to the East Coast, if you accept that 10 years ago we were getting 100% of what we were getting, now we're getting 3/4 of what we're getting. Is that right?
Yeah, spot on. And as a result, the price has tripled. So when you hear Leith and I talk about reservation, what we're saying is you say to the people that are extracting the gas and are selling it around the world and making a quid, you're entitled to that, extract it and send it. But let's say 15% of anything you take out of the ground, those mugs over there, they're the Australian taxpayers. They get it for basically the cost of extraction. They get it really cheap. That's the deal. Absolutely. And if we're not going to do that, we should also charge them export levies or whatever. So, start charging them for their exports. Some sort of fee or a super profits tax. So when the price per gigajoule goes over, say, $6 a gigajoule, we get a return, whatever. We just need to solve this problem and make sure that Australians come first. Australians are supplied first. We have reliable and affordable gas, which we don't have at the moment. And just the notion that we're now going to have shortages of gas domestically in the second biggest gas exporter in the world, even though West Coast, we've got two separate markets that aren't linked.
Yes,
but East Coast is a massive exporter as well. We export nearly 3/4 of our East Coast gas, and most of that goes to China, who then uses it to build up their manufacturing now as a warship off the coast of New South Wales. This isn't very smart stuff.
No.
Like Australia needs industrial capacity.
Yeah.
And you giving yourself expensive energy and shooting yourself in the foot is the exact way to destroy your industrial capacity. And this is what we're doing. We've lost our plastics manufacturer, lost our glass maker. We've lost our fertilizer. We're basically shuttering our manufacturing down and becoming more reliant on imports, having a less diversified economy because we've decided to give ourselves expensive energy through policy failure. It's moronic.
Thank you, mate. Talk to you next week.
Yeah, thanks, Luke.
Good on you. How good. macrobusiness.com.au and you can get the daily information from Leith and his team there. I mean, you hear that. And look, I know Leith and I go through these issues each week, and some of them are linked to what we talked about the week before. But this is the stuff where I don't know if you lie in bed at night not being able to sleep because you can't jump over bills, but you wonder about the cost of energy. So at the west coast of Australia, they have some of the cheapest energy prices in the world. On the east coast, where we are, we have some of the most expensive. The difference? It's still Australian gas and still Australian this and all that kind of gear. On the west coast, they have reservation. On the east coast, what do we got? None of it. We say, let it rip, baby. Get it out of the ground and send it where you want. And then we say, oh, can you keep some for the people? It's their gas. They say, hang on, you said let it rip, baby. So, no. Well, someone's got to come in at some point and say, you know what, new game, you're doing very well out of this, and we don't want to pose a sovereign risk, but, we're elected by those mugs over there that pay tax, and we've got a responsibility to make their lot a bit better. Plus, we'd like Australia to be a place where we make things. So we're going to offer up cheap energy to the people that live there and pay tax and the people that make things and pay tax. And the way we're going to do that is you're going to send a heap of that gas for just the cost of extraction back to those mugs there, right? And if you don't want to do that, for every whatever joule of gas you send overseas, there's now 100% tax. Good luck. I mean, it's come to this. Or we can just we'll have bills we can't afford. And families going to other family members and saying, I can't pay my bill this month. Ever had that happen? We all have. It's ridiculous. And the fact that there are teals and those at the left that are within a bull's roar of being re-elected when we have this policy catastrophe playing out before our eyes is an embarrassing to our collective intelligence. And I make this point. This isn't all on Labor. This has got the hands of former Liberal governments all over it. You're weak. And you've got a bloke over there in America that people laugh at who wants to make America great again and blah, blah, blah. At least you have something going for them. He cares about the people. You buffoons at whatever level of council are too busy wondering how good you can look on the world stage. Well, rack off. Give us a class of people that give half a damn about the people that live here, work here, pay tax here. Just something. Just a little bit of hope wouldn't be bad. What you've done to Australia is a damn disgrace.
There's a